That's another thing of advice I can give is like, even if you have a bit of momentum rolling, like relationships are still very important, and you have to put as much effort into that as you can, and just enough on the music, because there's so many people out there making great music.
Hey, dude, welcome in. Aris Carter, welcome to my Twitch stream.
How's it going? Thank you for having me.
Welcome, dude. Yeah, good. I'm good. How are you? You just woken up because you're in New York?
Yeah, I'm in New York. It's about 8:07 a.m. here, so it's pretty early, but happy to be here and ready to start my day.
Thank you for getting up for us. That's really cool.
Of course.
So, as I mentioned, you've had some big releases, and just I've been watching on my Instagram your tours of Asia. They look super fun, and I want to get into them properly in a bit. Before we start anything serious, though, we have a little bit of silly in here because obviously it's lunchtime here. We have a thing called a meal deal in the UK. It's basically a kind of sandwich, confectionery, and kind of crisps, chips combo meal. I don't know if you have those in the States. And if you do you have a go-to which you kind of always get?
I'd say my favorite go-to lunch, I'm like working on music, is probably Chipotle. It's
nice.
I think they have some in the UK, right? Chipotle, it's like Mexican food.
Mexican,
like
nice.
Yeah. So I'll get a couple tacos, and my go-to drink is a chocolate milk, which is also on my rider.
Nice, you got chocolate milk on your rider. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. You're from New York, aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah, born and raised.
Are you Surprise got a game in saying salmon and cream cheese, Doritos, and an orange juice? That's a good combo. Mine always was like in the UK we have this like breakfast triple sandwich, and it's like one's got fatty sausage, one's got egg and kind of something, and the other one's bacon. And you have like 3 sandwiches instead of a normal 2 sandwich. It's got the extra 3 because it's like the big old beast, and it's so unhealthy. Like you can't imagine. And loads of it's on really thick white bread as well, and it's like you're definitely putting pounds on eating that sandwich. Now it's more like a salad, or now we're even down to soups. Me and Loz are like fully on the soup every lunch now, especially in our house. It's freezing at the moment.
Wow.
Right there, my meal day is a Publix sub. What's a Publix sub?
I know Publix. It's like a Florida grocery store chain, and they have good subs.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, gotcha. Okay, well that's lunch. Anyone else that's got a meal deal fave, drop them in the chat. I'd love to know meal deals. We haven't done meal deals properly in ages. It feels like we haven't done a meal deal since like forever. I used to go. Prize got a game and used to go there because he lived in Orlando. Cool. I want to go. Okay, cool. Those sandwiches look rad. Oki Palace. What's Oki Palace? Oki Place. What's that? So let's get cracking. I just thought I'd kind of start right at the very start. Like, let's chat. Growing up, like you said, you grew up in New York and lived in New York. Like, how was that? What music were you listening to? Kind of when did you get into music and that sort of? Let's start right at the very, very start.
Got it. Yeah. So, like I said, I'm born and raised in New York. My family comes from a bit of history in the entertainment industry. My great-grandfather owned one of the first record stores here.
No way.
Yeah. And then my grandfather.
What was that called?
I don't remember the name off the top of my head, but I never got to go there. It was around a long time ago. Yeah. Way before my time. I don't even think my father even made it there. But
oh, no way. Okay,
yeah,
cool. That's old. Okay.
Very, very, very early. And then my grandfather worked selling TV reruns in Latin America, and then my father worked more on the executive side and entertainment and the corporate finance side. But my dad always likes to say I'm the 4th generation entertainment in our family. Then when I was growing up, I was never really a music person. Didn't really play instruments. I did a bit of musical theater. That's probably the closest I came to it when I was very young. I'd say I've always liked music, though. I was into just kind of regular top 40 stuff, hip hop, a bit of like rock and roll. And then when I was about 15, I started getting more, as electronic music was coming up here, I started getting more into like the big ones like Avicii, Swedish House Mafia, Skrillex, kind of the usual suspects that get people into the music. And I happened to be in Miami on my spring break in March of 2012. Yeah. And I heard about Ultra happening. And I asked my dad, I was like, oh, can we check this out? A lot of these DJs I like are playing. I only really knew that like the top ones, like I said, like Skrillex, Avicii, those types. And he was like, okay, sure, we can go check it out. We went just Saturday night to see Avicii. I was 15 years old. I was with my dad in a crowd, and my mind was just blown. And I was like, I need to figure out how I can get up there and do that.
Nice.
So yeah, I guess working with Ultra the past couple of years has been pretty full circle moment, and especially last March when I did Ultra Miami the first time.
Oh man, that's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. Ultra Miami is an incredible place, isn't it? I've been there a couple of times, and it's huge first and foremost, and it's just a madhouse.
And it's just crazy how they've upped their game since then. Like back then, it really didn't look too much different from, I'd say, the regular festivals now. It's always been before, like ahead of its time, but just compared to how much they've grown the production value wise is insane. Yeah,
we were in. Where did we go? We went into the Carl Cox he's got a mega structure. Oh, yeah. It's huge, and the whole ceiling came down, and we just stood there going, "Holy crap, this is incredible!"
Yeah.
So that was 2012, and you were 15 in 2012. Holy moly, I feel old. Wow. Okay. So that was you were listening to kind of Avicii and those kind of guys. That was like the kind of peak EDM, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah.
Big room. Okay. And then when did production kind of start, and when did you start DJing first? Did I read you had like a residency in New York at 18? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah. So I started DJing a bit. Like my goal back then, I was like, okay, it would be cool to play Ultra and stuff, but right now I just want to play my friends' parties, convince the seniors at my high school to let me play the parties and stuff. And I was trying to do that, but no one really took me seriously. I was just some kid who just brought a controller. But back then I had no knowledge of the industry, and I didn't really understand like how things worked with bookings. So I would just message promoters on Facebook like, hey, I'm a DJ, I'd love to play. And this club in New York, it doesn't exist anymore, but it was basically like an offshoot of Pacha Ibiza in New York called Pacha New York. They started doing under 18 nights called Pacha U18, which were
nice.
So basically they would have, when they had big headliners come that they knew they had a younger audience as well, they would add on a booking from 5 to 10 p.m. before their main show and market it only to 14 to 18 year olds and no alcohol, nothing like that. It was just for high school kids. And I messaged them. I was like, hey, I'm a DJ. I'm in high school. I can bring out my friends to come to these parties if you can book me. And they're like, oh, great. I never thought I'd get a message back. I said, can you come in for a meeting? I go to the club for a meeting. My mom had to drop me off. She was like, what are you doing at a nightclub at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Thursday? Like,
I love it.
And they basically gave me the rundown, which is basically how any local DJ starts out. I was like, okay. Back then it was hard tickets. They gave me a stack of hard tickets. They're like, okay, if you sell enough tickets, I'll get you a slot. And I was like, great. I sold all the kids in my school tickets, and I ended up selling about 50 tickets.
Nice. And that's a good number. Nice.
It's not bad. And then they're like, okay, great. 50 tickets. What's my set time? It's like, oh, you're going to play in the basement, which is basically the bathroom and the coat check.
Nice. Okay.
So you got to start somewhere. And I think that was my first ever show, and Nervo was playing the main room. They were the headliner. And then so I came back the next time. I was like, look, that was fun, but I want to play the main room. What do I got to do that? And they're like, oh, those are all promoter groups. They sell upwards of 250 tickets. And I was like, give me the tickets, let me try. They said, sure, we'll see what happens. I knew I couldn't sell out on my own. So what I did was I knew a lot of other kids at other schools in the city. And in New York, it's kind of small, especially in the school system, it's a bit smaller. You always know other kids in the other schools. So I had at least one friend at every other like main school that would go to these things. And I said, hey, will you sell tickets for me under my name for these shows? I let them keep the commission off the tickets. My goal was just to get the slot. I wasn't too focused on the money at that time. And so I let them keep the commission. And I also used my commission on the tickets I sold to pay them a $10 bonus for every 10 tickets they sold.
Nice. Solid.
So, and then for that event, it was Hardwell as the headliner. And I sold 200 tickets, and I got to open for Hardwell on the main floor when I was 16, I think. Yeah.
Nice. Entrepreneur at 16. That's strokes, man.
I've always had to start with a very business mindset, to get things done. Before that was before I started producing. So that the only thing if you're not a producer, the only thing you can really show for as a DJ is ticket sales, so you got to make that work.
100%. And getting that at 16 is crazy. That's wicked.
Yeah, that was, and then from there, like they started realizing, like with all these kids getting into DJing, that some of these kids would come on stage. They get so excited. They sold all these tickets to play the slots, but they would just play like the Beatport #1s right before the headliner. Like they play like Martin Garrix's Animals and like scream on the mic right before the headliner goes on, and the headliners would get pissed. But they were able to see that I knew how to play as an opener, which is pretty rare for someone at my age at the time.
Yeah, where did those skills come from?
It just came from, I think it came trial and error. I think the first time I did it, I was like, oh, they were like, okay, you got to tone it down a bit. I just knew I saw what the other people were doing. I knew that could sort of set me apart. And I knew that's what the promoters liked because they wanted to keep the headliners happy. And then once they saw I could do that, I think one of the times they actually had to opener before me because I was the direct support, and they had to kick them off early because they were playing way too hard. And so they put me on, and I had to, like, easiest thing, but you have to tone down the room a bit. It's a bit counterintuitive because you want to keep people going, you know, but then you sort of build it back up. And they saw I knew how to do that pretty well, and it came sort of intuitively. So at that point, they were just like, okay, sell what tickets you can, but we want to keep you on the slots. And that was how it sort of became a residency.
That's cool.
For the under 18
That's
shows.
very cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Very cool. Yeah, that's a hard trick, isn't it? Once you kind of, if you're coming, because that as well, with that music, that EDM music, you can quite easily, like you say, go full on beans and be on the mic and all the jumping around and then with that kind of crowd as well, where it's a younger crowd, when you're kind of trying to slow it and kind of keep it, that's hard.
Yeah.
And I guess you might have, did you get kind of negative feedback from crowds as well because of that as well?
Not too much. I definitely, if someone before me was playing harder, I had to tone it down and it wasn't as crazy. But I'd say, honestly, with kids that age, I would get to go see Hardwell or Martin Garrix or any of these guys. Is kind of like shooting fish in a barrel, you know. They were just excited to be there and going crazy. Yeah, I had to learn once I sort of phase out of that like not every crowd would be like that, you know.
Yes. Oh, I bet. Yeah. Holy moly, yeah. Because I bet they're rammed early because everyone wants to get in and see Hardwell, and because there's no alcohol, it's not like you're getting there to get like there's a different. The crowd must be different for sure.
Oh yeah, they couldn't stop kids from drinking before or anything like that, but but it was actually funny. They actually had like table service for VIP with like Red Bull and soda and like
milk and cookies on the
yeah. Yeah.
No way. That's funny. Okay, so that's cool. So that was at 18. Wow. And then when did the kind of production start? Because I saw you had releases like 9 years ago. So that must have come pretty soon around there as well. Yeah, that was around the same time. I sort of got into producing really fast and made some really basic music that it sort of I got a release on Armada around that time. And it was more EDM stuff that I'm not really making anymore, but it was a good start. And yeah, so that's I basically just spent every day learning Ableton after school. I had to leave school early whenever I could just to get home and work on music and just expand my skill set. But at that time I was sort of like I wouldn't say I had a sound yet, you know. I was sort of just making what I thought was cool, like the tracks I liked, something similar, you know. Which did okay, but I knew sort of to take the next step, I had to like not just focus on becoming a good producer, but finding my own sound as well. I love how you're saying just making basic sound. There was the next word. It was like I got released on Armada, which would have still been big then as well. Oh yeah. No, yeah. Because I'm guessing that was 2014, 2015. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, gang in the chat laughing. Cool. So, and then were you learning from YouTube? Like, how did that kind of like the production knowledge come from? I met like a mentor who had been a DJ before. His name was Bo Pericic. He was part of the duo Philo and Perry. Oh, cool. Yeah, I know them. Yeah, he was a professor at NYU at the time, where I actually went to college. No way. Production. Yeah, so I started working with him on the side. I met him through a mutual friend of someone I could like sort of learn production from. So he sort of mentored me in the very early stages, and on top of that, YouTube as well. Yeah, that's very cool. His mentor works for. That's pretty sick. Yeah, exactly, Saranson. I agree. That's mad. Okay, so then we had 4 years ago. You had your first release on Spinnin, which is huge, dude. And I saw it was like 4 million streams or something ridiculous now. How did that come about? Was that kind of off the other releases building, or was it kind of, were you getting a lot of hype then? Was you playing a lot of gigs then? What was happening around that time?
Around that time, so that was 2018. So I was junior in college. Things were going well when I was in high school. Wasn't really touring on my own. I was actually touring with a hip hop artist a bit. I can get into that later.
Yeah, let's do that in a bit.
But my parents were very adamant that I went to college, got a degree. I wasn't making enough money yet to fully sustain myself. So they were like, okay, you should just get through college, and then after you can come back to this, So with college being pretty rigorous, I didn't have time to have a full release schedule. And I was like, okay, let me just focus on my courses. I went to a music program at NYU, so I was able to still work on my skills and whatnot.
That's
but
cool.
I'd say halfway through, I was like, I just want to get back out there, and like that's sort of when I was like, after my little stints in high school, I was like, okay, around 2018, it was like, okay, I'm gonna go full speed ahead with this once again. I didn't care that I was in college. I was just gonna put all my energy into music, and so I was just started making all these ideas, trying to figure out what my sound was. And that track, Faking, was actually a collab with the Chinese DJ and producer Carta. And that was who I had been friends with a while. I met him actually. We were staying at the same hotel during Miami Music Week for Ultra one year, and ended up just going to the festival together as fans because we just met each other there. And we always kept in touch. And he got signed to Spinnin as their first big Chinese artist. So I had played him the idea for the track, and he loved it. So I was like, okay, great. He signed to Spinnin. Let's make it a collab. We can get on Spinnin. And then that's exactly what happened.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's cool. That's like a little backdoor in. That's cool.
Oh yeah.
That's a clever networking though.
That's a good tip I'd give is like, if you know someone that's working heavily with a label and you have a relationship with them to do a collab, that's the perfect way to get into a label. Because now I know all the A&Rs there. I know the guys there. If I ever send them, I can send them music whenever I want. And so yeah, doing a collab with someone that has a relationship with a label is one of the best ways to build your own relationship with that label as well.
I guess it's probably easier with someone that's just been like if they've just had a first release on a label rather than someone that's had multiple releases, because if they've just got in there, then they're more likely to do collabs with newer people. Because if you're brand new, like they're more likely to do with somebody that's a little bit smaller than somebody that's massive. Cool. Should we listen to this track? It's time for a track. Should we play a track? Let's get this on, and we can have a quick tea break. Right, we're gonna play this. Let us know anything in the chat. This is Fakin. We'll play it and then we'll talk about it and a bit more of the production. You've been faking. It's fast enough to make you sweat. Subsided, faking. It's fast enough to make you sweat. You are faking. For another cigarette, you can know you're smart. This job ain't for me, no. You've been faking. It's fast enough to make you sweat. So that was Faking. That was on Spinnin. Talk us about the kind of how that came about. Like we can talk about how it came about. What's your kind of process for making that track? You said you kind of started a track and then he jumped on. How did
exactly. I started with the top line. Like I was at the top line, and it was a very different thing. It was kind of like a slower, mid-tempo kind of funk thing, and then I completely changed the key, completely increased the tempo to I think 122 is that track 121. And started with the main thing was the chords, and then the drop started more as like back then kind of like the future house thing was really big. It was very Don Diablo kind of thing, hexagon style. And then Carta worked on it a bit, and we changed the drop to have a bit more of like a bass heavy drop. That's sort of how that came about. But I'd say the main thing started with the chords, and that's like the first thing you hear. And I think that's what drew people to the track.
That's cool. That was like 4 years ago, and then around the same time, didn't you remix the Chainsmokers remix? Was that before? Or was that kind of around the same time?
That was after.
And did that come because of the success of Fakin? How did that, or was it just happening already?
So one of my first, this wasn't an official release, but it was like a SoundCloud release. I did a remix for their song "You Owe Me" around before that was before Faking, and they caught wind of it, reposted on SoundCloud. It wasn't official, but it did pretty well still.
Nice.
And I sort of got in touch with someone on their management and label, and would send them music and stuff. And then I think I tried, honestly. The Chainsmokers are very big on remixes, and they're very big on giving remix opportunities to up and coming artists. So if you look at the remixes of their remixes or tracks, are a lot of up and comers, and there are a lot of up and comers you'll see like do really big things later on. Like if you look at like the track "Don't Let Me Down," they had Illenium do a remix, and now Illenium is like a massive arena touring act. I sort of just kept in touch. They sent me stems of 3 or 4 tracks, and I tried them all, and most of them got passed on. And then finally with this one, I guess Alex and the Chainsmokers really liked it a lot and pushed for it, and we got it officially released through Columbia. So that was pretty amazing. That's
very cool. Yeah. Very cool. Congrats, man. You said you did 3 or 4. That's mental. What did you just kind of have a crack at them all? Did you think, if I do them all, then one might get through, or did you have a kind of process behind choosing which ones you chose?
It was one by one. If they released a new song and I thought I could try something with it, I would ask for the stems. They'd always send it.
Yeah.
And then I try and then wait and hear back, and a lot of times it was nothing, or sorry, this one's not a fit. And then it was just sort of, I guess, trial and error until the next song came out, and then they liked it enough to release it.
That's cool. Do you remember how you started that project? How did that kind of, when you started working on that one, do you remember how you did that?
Yeah. So at the end of the song, Push My Luck, there's this kind of like finale drop section that has this like really cool glitchy vocal chop. And I was like, okay, I want to use that as a basis for the drop. Because I thought that part personally was underused in the original track. I took that part and then built the drop around that and used kind of the same bass kind of stuff from Faking. And then from there, I did a couple cool like chord changes in the breakdown just to bring out the vocal more and leading into the drop. And I'd say the main thing was kind of like a cool little trick using that part that's just in the end of the track, because it's not what it's. I really liked it, but most people thinking of the song wouldn't remember that part. So a lot of people thought like, oh wow, this amazing vocal chop you did on the drop. But that was just, I literally just took that from a part from like 10 second snip of the track that's barely in there. And
way, that's mental.
Refocused it, yeah.
That's mental. That's cool. Okay, cool. Well, let's listen to that, and then we'll carry on. Are they talking about your studio? Have you got? So someone said they've got an R2. Yes. You got a Star Wars R2, which we can't see on this screen, but we can see. Oh, there we go. Yeah. He's got those Star Wars. Nice. What have you got up there? Whilst we're talking Star Wars.
We got R2D2. A probe droid, a stormtrooper, and Obi-Wan Kenobi's starfighter, and then this is Darth Maul's lightsaber.
Whoa, sick. That's cool. Nice. That's very cool. When did you get into Star Wars?
Since I was born, basically. Like that was my first obsession before music, and it still is.
That's very, very cool. I guess that's a parents thing, kind of passed down the Star Wars. Your parents in Star Wars?
Not really, actually.
No way.
Yeah. My dad, they've all seen the movies, but they're not none of them are super fans. I just sort of got into it pretty naturally. I think I was at a toy store and saw one of the movies playing on the TVs and saw the toys, and I was like, I got into the toys, and then I started watching the movies, and I had to be like 2 or 3. And then it just became a full-on obsession from that point.
That's cool.
That's the one thing that's been like, 2 things have been constant, like that and music. That from an earlier age, but I've had a lot of interests and passions throughout the years, but those are the 2 that have never gone away. Sean
Jackson's here. Yeah, Erez is this Jedi Studio Master. Nice. Sean has an same R2 unit. Let's play this. You say that you got nothing else to do. Is it okay if I stay? 'Cause I'm dying to. Yeah, I'm dying to.
Restless, tangled up in your mattress. In the morning we'll get dressed. The one that got away. You caught me never let go. I think I might push my luck with you. Does another night feel alright to you? If I ask right now, would you think it through? Hey, I think I might push my luck with you. Did you say that you got nothing else to do? Said okay if I stay, cause I'm dying to. Yeah, I'm dying to.
There we go. Let's give that the right one. That's cool. That's wicked, mate.
That one I listened to it like last week for the first time in a while, and I was like, oh, that one was pretty good.
I know. That's nice. The sound is similar. Like sound from obviously from Fakin it is similar. And that was that kind of the vibe you were going down that time, and were you playing that kind of music?
Yeah, definitely. Back then I was still playing more. I think that around then is when I started getting a bit more into house music. Yeah, and you can definitely hear some influence of that, but I was still playing mostly EDM. That's just what I grew up listening to, and that's what I was going for at the time. And it wasn't until later when I went fully down the house and techno rabbit hole, and then shifted my sound more towards that.
Yeah, where did that start? When did that happen? Because where were we now? So that's yours. So that was what 20. That one came out.
That was end of 2019. So right before that was right before like the pandemic and everything, and that's what sort of when I had always liked it, and I would honestly when I started getting to that age, I was probably 22, 23 at the time. So when I started going out more and stuff, that's the kind of music I was like liking to go out to. And I was like, okay, I'm making this more commercial, big room kind of stuff, but when I'm going out, this is what I want to be hearing. And then, of course, in 2020, everything shut down, and that's when I was like, okay, like there's not gonna be shows for at least a year, so let me figure out now what I want to actually do with my sound, And I started getting into that, and I was like, okay, how can I? But I wasn't just like, oh, let me just make the tech house records and sound like the people that are hot right now. It was sort of like, okay, how can I take what I've been doing before and incorporate that into what's working now? And that's cool. Sort of how I went down that journey.
That's very cool. Skeleton Key says sounds like you have a great grasp of chord theory. Did you learn it as you went along, or was you musical before?
I was never really that musical, to be honest. I sort of just did a lot of like experimenting because the music that drew me to electronic music was always very melodic in nature. So like I said, Avicii, Swedish House Mafia, the guys that really focus on those chords. And what I would do is sort of like take chord progressions I like. If there's a song I like, to find out the chord progression, take that chord progression, change the key, maybe change a chord or two, and just start from there. And that every major producer has done that at some point, is taken another chord progression and changed it. Like there's only so many chord progressions you can come up with. As long as you're doing something your own with it. If you like a feeling of the track, just take that chord progression, change the key, and make it your own. Don't use the same sounds. So that's all basically the best suggestion. And that's something I was even taught at NYU music school.
That's very cool. That's a great tip. Yeah. And also, Loz, reference tracks. Loz, our assistant, always says about reference. So referencing key theories as well.
I'm pretty sure I saw an interview with Kashmir, and when he did the track "Secrets" with Tiesto, he took the same chord progression from "Yeah" as "Heads Will Roll," like the da na 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 na, and then changed it, and that's how it became "Secrets."
No way. That's very cool.
I saw that interview, and I think that's sort of like what gave me that idea to play around doing stuff like that.
So there you go, gang. And the amount of times that Loz bangs about reference tracks, and we've actually got reference emotes in that, because I made reference emotes the amount of times that Loz says about references. Go and reference everything. So then we went into lockdown and we started looking at new sound, and we obviously came out of lockdown with a new sound and a bit more of a love of house and techno, I guess. And then we started working together last summer when you joined the course. And kind of, can you remember what the motivation was jumping on board, and where that kind of started from?
Oh yeah, so I was just starting to pick up touring again. I think it was right before I went on a tour when we started talking, and I was like, look, I'm going to get all this content. I'm going to play all these shows, but how do I put myself in like a schedule of what I'm actually going to post, and how am I going to, and basically before that I was sort of like, oh, like I'll just post what I get from the show and play it by ear, and you always talk about the course. I often found myself like when I was like, oh, what I haven't posted in 3 or 4 days, which I should probably post something. What should I post? It was a lot of it was sort of like that. And I was like, okay, I think it wasn't that like my social media was doing poorly. It was doing good, but I could use some more structure around it so I could think about it less when I'm working on music,
That's cool.
And that's the main thing I went to the course for, is to give that aspect of my career more structure.
That's very cool. I'm glad. Yeah, because it does help. Like once you kind of plan it out, like, and just not don't do that panic and post, and just literally plan it out, and then it really does help with your content, because you can make you schedule it, or you'll plan it out, and then even if you don't schedule it, you can sort of write it down in a schedule and go, right, I know what my posts are for the next week. I'm good. I can go and get on with the rest of my day. You know. Exactly.
Yeah. So now every week I'll have I thought doing personally 30 days was a bit up too far in advance for me, just because like things pop up, like a DJ, like you said, like a DJ plays your track or something, or you have a new announcement or new show announcement, something like that. I think the what's worked for me, every Sunday I'll get together and plan the post. I've been working with a friend who's gone viral on TikTok a few times, and she's sort of like helped me on that end with TikTok kind of stuff, and she'll help me out with that a bit, and then I'll just make the plan for the week, and I'll do at least 5 posts per week.
Nice.
That's mad. And have that planned out, yeah.
And I guess you're still like you do. Like I said, we just done this mad tour. I guess you're capturing, because you're kind of thinking of your plan, and you're thinking of kind of your content more. You're capturing more, and it's kind of helping with that plan as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'll just, after the tour, I was like, look, I have probably 60 plus raw clips of a certain drop playing, and like each one of those is a piece of content, and keep posting with those, and one of them's got to hit at some point, you know. And I've had a few of them that have done pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's coll. Yeah, but I've seen loads of them. Every time I see them, I'm like, go on. It's like, I see you on the tour. It looked a really fun tour. How long were you away for? Let's talk about the tour a little bit.
Oh, great. Yeah. So the tour was from mid-September to October. It was 5 countries in Asia. It was Japan, Korea, Thailand, and Indonesia. 4 countries. Sorry, 4 countries, 5 shows.
Nice.
And the first of them being Ultra Japan, which I did the main stage on the Saturday, and then Ultra Korea, and then I did a headline club show in Bangkok, and then Ultra Bali, which was kind of like they called it Ultra Beach Bali. It was like a mini Ultra.
How did the Ultra thing come about? Like, because we spoke about you went to Ultra when you were a kid, and then how did you?
Oh yeah.
How did we connect with Ultra? Where did that kind of connection come about?
That sort of came out around the same time as that track Faking on Spinnin, because that was a collab with, I'd say, Carta, who's the one of the biggest DJs from China, and that got a lot of attention in the Asia market. And I got in touch with the promoters for Ultra Korea, and around the same time, I did my first show around the same time, but that was like on the small side stage. They just invited me, like, honestly, like, probably got paid just enough to cover flights, and I was like, it's Ultra, I gotta get out there, you know.
100%.
I made that happen, and from there, that sort of became a relationship, and I started doing more with them. Did Ultra Japan the next year as well, and then I really kept in touch with them throughout the pandemic, and just talked about ways we can work together on other stuff as well, not just bookings, but that became building a great relationship. And then I got an agent for the region Asia, and then through the Asia, it sort of expanded larger, and I've done Ultra Europe, Ultra Miami.
Nice.
And then looks like we're gonna do some more with them this year as well.
Where did you so you kind of leveraged what you that release, but where were you tracking down those promoters? Like, was it on a platform? Was it on somewhere? Like, what was your process there?
Oh, I met one of the promoters in Miami on the same time when the release came out. So actually I think it was ADE. I always get confused. It was ADE one of those years. And that just sort of became a relationship, and then saw again in Miami, and then was invited to come there for the festival that summer. And then
gotcha.
through that just kept in touch. And yeah, that's another thing of advice I can give is like, even if you have a bit of momentum rolling, like, relationships are still very important, and you have to put as much effort into that as you can, and just as enough on the music, because there's so many people out there making great music, so many people having big releases, so many people getting millions of streams. And if you put you couldn't fit everyone that gets 10 million plus streams onto every festival lineup, you know. There's so many people doing it right now. So building a strong personal and professional relationship is the best ways you can leverage that success. I'm not saying you can do that's the end all be all, but it's the best way you can leverage that success that you're having.
That's very cool. Yeah, I completely agree. Like, your network is definitely Like one of your, like, if not your biggest asset, or your, like, even sometimes even bigger than records, like
100%. Yeah.
So, okay, so that came at ADE, and I guess that was from a kind of, if the spinning release had come out, then it was kind of a spinning thing, and then it kind of helped that networking a little bit as well, I guess.
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, cool. So yeah, ADE, yeah, and I agree. ADE is absolutely rocking for those sort of for those global contacts. Like, you can't underestimate how good ADE is for making so much. For those that don't know, ADE is Amsterdam dance event. It happens in October every year, around the kind of third week of October, sort of from Wednesday to the Saturday, Sunday. And the best days are like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for kind of the day networking. There's parties all the time. I know for a fact that Spinning have a big thing there, and they do because they're obviously Amsterdam based. They have a big Amsterdam kind of showcase every year because it's in their own town and their own city and their own. And I'm guessing they brought a load of you in as artists into be part of that showcase.
Yeah, I wasn't playing at the time, but I was able to go hang out, meet the people face to face, and yeah, even if you're not playing shows, I'd recommend getting over there. I even had I was there. I saw you there this past year. It was a lot of fun. And I even had a friend who I convinced to come, who was a really talented 18-year-old producer from New York, and I was like, you should just, if you're not in school, you should just head out there. And he made such good use of it. It's just sort of like going there, seeing who you can meet. If you go to a small party, even if you're not like in the industry yet, you'll chances are someone there is, and you'll meet them there. But my advice for that is focusing on like the smaller events that don't really have much of a backstage, and you can just go 100%. And walk up to people. Yeah, like a lot of people will say, "Oh, yeah, I'm gonna go to AD or Miami for networking," and then they'll go to like Ultra and GA for like thousands and thousands of people. And like, yeah, that's fun if you want to get inspired, but like you're not gonna really, unless you can somehow finesse a backstage pass, you're not gonna really have much luck on the networking side there. But meanwhile, if you go to a small pool party or 200 cap room club, it's much more of a relaxed environment, and you can really meet some great contacts.
100%. The mixers at ADE are the absolute net bomb.
Yeah.
Like,
those are great.
They're the best thing to get into. Or like a load of our friends, a load of people in the chat might be house music producers. Like some of the kind of things like Defected Croatia. If you want to get into house music and you want to meet a load of Defected crew, Defected Croatia is absolutely the one, because everyone walks around and there is no like you say, there's no backstages. It's just a fence, and you can go and talk to all of the artists there. And it's much better for building those connections than say going to Printworks and trying to get into something that's a massive thousands event. Much easier to network. So picking the right spot for sure.
Exactly. Another great one. This one's a bit of a commitment. Is a cruise festival for networking.
Nice.
Because everyone is trapped on a boat.
Nice.
And they can't escape you. That's
nice.
when I was touring with the hip hop artists, we did the Mad Decent boat party. Yeah. Which was Diplo's cruise ship. I was able to meet so many contacts through there. He was sort of invited as a special guest, even though I was DJing for him like hip hop, I was really still into dance music. So I was able to meet like Dylan Francis, Diplo, Skrillex, all these people I looked up to, and also their managers, agents, a lot of blog people, press, and even like I don't think that specific event is around anymore, but there's still things like Groove Cruise and Holy Ship, and I have a friend who met Lee Foss on Groove Cruise, and now he works for him as an A&R for Populate Mars. Yeah,
nice. I agree. I love that sort of thing. And you're right. It's not with the whole networking thing. Sometimes it's not about meeting the actual artist, or that is nice. It 100%. Is about all of the other people that are around, that managements, the PRs, the publicists, the agents, the booking agents, those all people all are great contacts and great people to get phones and emails from, I'm sure.
Yeah. If anything, that's more important. Like anyone can go recognize an artist, but like if you recognize someone's manager or agent and like, oh, like John or whoever, right? And they're like, okay, this person knows their stuff and is taking this seriously, and you'll automatically be like taking this level seriously, and that's one way to cut through the noise of everyone wanting to go up to Tiesto or John Summit or whoever to hand them a USB of demos, Yeah.
Go and talk to the manager about something else, especially if you know if you've done your research around that team as well. So let's talk about the touring of the hip hop. How did that happen? Yeah, because you mentioned it a little bit. Let's talk about touring with hip hop DJ.
So this artist is I Love McConan. You might remember a song in 2014 called Tuesday, which is like club going up on a Tuesday with Drake. I had to spin.
I've never heard that track.
It may have been a more US thing, but he had hit me up on SoundCloud before that. And that was before I was even producing. He just found my mixes that I was uploading to SoundCloud I recorded. And he was like, oh, I play your mixes at my house parties. I love them. And we just sort of kept in touch as he was putting out music. And I saw he was like, okay, he's like going hard on this hip hop thing and getting a little momentum. His music was very different from what I was doing. And all of a sudden I wake up one day, Drake posts on Instagram, Club Going Up on a Tuesday, which is one of his songs. And then a week later, he puts out a remix of it that gets officially released. So he basically got his song got hopped on by Drake. From there, he like started blowing up. He finally came from Atlanta to New York, and we met up. I picked him up from the airport because we've been friends online for years. And all of a sudden, he was having this big moment, and he was getting all these booking offers. He signed with OVO, which was Drake's label, under Warner. And he was like, "Hey, look, I need a DJ for my shows. Will you do it?" I'm like, "I don't know how to DJ hip hop, but I'll figure it out." Yeah. And I was at that time I was 17, 18. So that's when things sort of at the end of high school sort of got a little bit crazy because I would travel with him. We did the Diplo cruise, as I said. We did a bunch of shows in New York. We did a show with Carnage, who's now Gordo, and that's how I built a relationship with him, which I can get more into later. That was one of our big shows at Pier 94 in New York. It was like 7,000 people. That was one of the biggest shows I'd ever done at the time.
How old were you then? 17?
17, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did that go down with the parents when you said, I'm going on tour with a hip hop DJ and we're going to play all these mad shows? How did that go down with the parents?
That was a interesting conversation, to say the least. It was good. Like the biggest thing was the boat cruise. I think for that one they actually sent someone on the cruise just to watch over on me and make sure I didn't like get into any trouble. Yeah,
spy on the cruise.
Yeah, that was basically like a chaperone. But
did you know they were there, or did they tell you afterwards?
I knew. Yeah, I knew.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. But I don't think I barely saw them the whole time. They just sort of did their own thing and just made sure I was safe. Right. Cool. But yeah,
because like you say earlier, where were you going to get to on a cruise? Like you literally could just go around the boat, and that's about it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was a ton of fun. We would tour every weekend when I was in high school, and like I'd have to leave early some days. But that's sort of when everything sort of came to a head. Where it was like, okay, like I had skipped enough gym class to not graduate, so you need to tone it down. Yeah.
Oh no. Yeah. I was playing 7,000 people at 17 years old. That's crazy.
It was pretty crazy. It was a bit different. Like that wasn't my end goal because I wanted to be playing my own records. I was literally just playing for someone else to rap over and sing over. But it was still a great experience. It really got my foot in the door, and that was like kind of what got me in the industry. You know, working with him. And then from there I was able to say like, oh well, I do this, but I also make my own music. I also DJ electronic music. So, and then luckily he was a hip hop artist, but like he had the same management as Diplo and Skrillex at the time. So I was able to like make connections in the dance music scene, even though I wasn't working with a dance music artist.
That's very cool. Very cool. Right. So then we're now back to 2021. We'll get back in the timeline zone. So you're coming out of lockdown after spending a few years kind of developing the sound. And then your next record was Next to Me, which was the collaboration with I Love.
Yes. That's where it all comes full circle. So I had worked with, as I just talked about, that's actually a perfect segue. Did you plan that?
No, but yes.
Yeah.
No, but yes, definitely.
I didn't realize that one was next, and I was like, that's perfect.
Yeah, I didn't either, but yeah, that was all me, baby. Yeah.
Wow, it really worked out. Yeah. So yeah, we had always like made ideas together when we were on the road. Worked on ideas, but obviously he was doing a bit of a different thing than I was. And as time went on, he was a bit more willing to experiment and stuff. And we got in the studio. I think it was a studio way before that, like 2019. And we just played around, did a bunch of cool little vocal ideas, didn't make a full track or anything, just sort of recorded stuff. And then I sort of had those ideas just sitting on my hard drive for a while. And I was like, let me do something with this. And I want to say, he had that line, like, it feels like ecstasy when you're next to me. And I just sort of turned that into a club record. And I was like, oh, cool. This kind of feels a bit Oliver Heldens club style, you know? So I sent it over to his manager for Hell Deep, and they really loved it. It took a bit of a time to get him cleared since he was signed to Warner to get him a clearance to do something on another label, but we got it done, and Oliver really loved it, wanted to sign it, and it was great. Yeah.
I've never considered that issue before. That at that sort of level, the kind of bigger kind of commercial level, that people only can work with certain labels and they're signed to certain labels, and then they have to go in and out of contracts.
They just have to get a waiver from the label, which it's not the most difficult process, but it can just take some time.
I guess because they've got big departments and lots of things and lots of artists.
Exactly, lots of red tape, lots of bureaucracy, and also like managements as well. Like saying like, oh, like, yeah.
Yeah, I heard this vocal earlier this morning, and it was because I was listening to these tracks this morning when I was writing the questions, and it was about 5 a.m. and I was just like, this is a great vocal, and I was thumping around to this track in the morning, and this morning whilst I was trying to write these things, so this is gonna be fun.
Feels like X. Like when you're next to me.
That's a big record, dude. Let's give that the rave. Let's give that the rave on. I feel that's do you know what? I even feel that gets a Hulk, man. That's fucking the big record. Let's give it a Hulk. Let's give it a Hulk. So for those you don't know, in my streams we have the rave one and we have the Hulk for the ultimate. Yeah. I'm like you or your Star Wars. I'm the same with Hulks. And for you, that's a match that you can see that change of sound, like from where we were previously to where you're coming out of pandemic. That's
I think that's where you can hear the bit of the house and techno influences starting to come in, you know? Yeah. And it's like, and I was really liking that, but I sort of had to find a way to like sort of transition it because I still had a bit of an audience from my previous releases as well. So I wanted to make something that both could be into, you know? Like I could reach new people, but as well as like keep the ones that have been fans for a while entertained.
That's cool. And you were saying before that, how do we say this person? So you were saying before that they found your DJ mixes. How do you say his name? I Love McConan. I Love McConan. He found your DJ mixes, which is absolutely killer. Like I'm such a fan of DJs doing DJ mixes and putting them online to kind of just spread what you're doing and what you're about. And that someone because you did them and you had them on there that opened up so much more for you, which is absolutely banging. And
I find it mind-boggling, honestly, how that ended up because I probably had less than 200 followers at the time, like, and I wasn't even producing. Like, I was just throwing mixes up because I liked making them.
Yeah,
no real strategy or anything. And he just it's crazy how the world works. Sometimes he just happened to come across them, and he at the time he wasn't much of a name either. He grew, and then I was able to grow through that.
I love that. I love that kind of just consistency of putting mixes out and consistency of. And then as you both grown, he's grown and he's pulled you along, and then it's like you say, it came full circle to releasing on Hell Deep a little bit later. That's that's what I love about the music industry so much, that this thing can happen and it can.
Yeah, you know, and I think I think even now, like back then, there was no algorithms. You know, you go on social media, like it was all just chronological, and now with TikTok and Instagram Reels algorithms, like a thing you put out with no followers can potentially reach millions of people. You just never know.
Exactly. So that release came out in 2021, and we're now getting a bit more current. What do you do in your downtime? What do you do in kind of non-music time? Like, there's one of my great people that I know is Pete Griffiths. He's from Touring, and he always asks me, like, when your hobby becomes your life, what other hobbies do you have? Because you need to kind of switch off from stuff. How do you do that, and what do you do?
Big thing is, as I got into earlier, Star Wars. And through that, Star Wars Lego sets.
Nice.
Yeah. So those actually, the R2 and everything are Lego sets. At my apartment, I actually have some bigger ones like the AT-AT and Millennium Falcon, Star Destroyers. Like there's like
Sick.
7,000 piece plus sets that take a lot of time, but that's honestly the best way for me to unwind after a studio or after a show or before a show. Yeah.
Have you got Lego on your rider?
Not yet. Maybe one day we'll get there. Yeah, might be a little much for now, but that's actually a good idea.
You should just like say about like a small, like, you know, like one of the smaller sets as a
like the $10 ones. I can just build it right before I go on.
10. You want a $10 Lego set on your rider?
Yeah.
Because then you can literally just sit there before a show and just sit and make it. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Bringing it home might be an issue though, like the break in my bag.
Yeah. It's like it could be part of your next content series. I built this on tour.
That's good. That's a great idea. Yeah. No, I've been trying to think of ways I can incorporate that into. We should talk about this actually. Ways I can incorporate that into my content as well. Because I've done some Lego content on TikTok and it's done kind of well. And but the problem I have is like I'll get all these Lego fans that aren't going to care about my music that much.
Well, you might get some that are. This is the kind of crossover with these sort of things. Like I know Vice, the person on the tour room. He's like a big fan of Batman, I think, and he'd always like sneak a Lego Batman into the bottom of some of his content, and you'd have to find it.
Oh wow, that's a great idea. I actually thought of something similar, like bringing like a Lego Stormtrooper or something on tour, and like get a video of me playing and like Ultra or something, and then you see him like the corner of the CDJ, he's standing there like
yeah, that's it. Just trying to get it, slowly bring it in there for sure, and bring it and kind of. But yeah, Lego is huge on TikTok. I've stumbled into the Lego zone on TikTok. That'd be mad. And there's all those people like mad houses where it's just like they go through and they go down some stairs and it's all up the roof, and I'm just like, holy moly, they're cool. While we're on Star Wars, then let's talk about Star Wars quickly. What's your favorite film? What's your favorite film? Let's start with that.
Revenge of the Sith.
Revenge of the Sith. Yes, that's a great film.
I'm a prequels guy. Those are the films I grew up with. I know they get a lot of hate sometimes, but that's what I grew up with, you know?
Yes. And I like the later ones. I like the later ones as well. Is definitely, it always used to be at Return of the Jedi, and it always used to be that. But then I kind of shifted to Empire Strikes Back for a while.
You can't go wrong with either of those. I'd say Return of the Jedi is probably my favorite of the originals. But Empire Strikes Back, you can't go wrong.
Mine was when I was younger, always somebody asked me like, "What's your favorite Star Wars?" And it was always Return of the Jedi. And then as I got older, I rewatched them all, and it was definitely kind of shifted to Empire Strikes Back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just the kind of So you're a prequel, because your age. That's
I was 8 years old when Revenge of the Sith came out.
No way.
Yeah, so that was like the first one I was able to really get it to and saw in theaters and stuff. And over time, like I sort of like I went through a phase where I only like the originals more. Revenge of the Sith, that just has probably the most nostalgia for me. I don't know. I just think it's a great but tragic story of turning to the dark side. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I was waiting for that film for a long time because of the kind of where it sat in the timeline. They did it well, I thought.
And also, I think the content that they released after, like such as the Clone Wars television series and whatnot, that really watching that and seeing the journey of what happened between episodes 2 and 3 of Anakin and Obi-Wan and his apprentice Ahsoka, like it made it all the more powerful and all the more heartbreaking of what happens in that film, you know?
Have you got into any of the kind of spin-offs now, The Mandalorian and those sort of things?
Oh, yeah. Those are great. I'm excited for season 3 coming out very, very soon.
I saw that trailer. Yes, I saw that trailer the other day. It looks ridiculous, season 3.
Yeah. And then now is they have the Bad Batch animated series happening right now as well. New episode out today. I haven't had a chance to watch yet, but I'll probably watch it later tonight. And
I enjoyed the Andor series. I thought that was good as well.
Andor was excellent. Obi-Wan Kenobi was really good as well. That was sort of like that was back to the prequels for me. So you know, you had Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen back together, and I was just like, I've been waiting for that for 20 years.
No way. That's mental. I suppose that's mental.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I was at university when the prequels came out. That's mad. Cool. Right. Okay. So let's get back into music. That was nice. And like a nice trip down Star Wars lane. Right, so then most recently, you have released on our friends over at Perfect Havoc, and you collaborated with Charlotte Haining. How do you find working with vocalists, and have you got any kind of tips around working with vocalists, and how did that kind of process happen?
Oh, that's a great question. That was another similar thing where I got sent the top line, was able to do my own thing with it, and everyone has a different process, but when I'm making a vocal record, that's sort of what works for me, is starting with the vocal and building around that. A lot of times the hardest thing is when you make an instrumental and finding the right vocal to fit that, because sometimes the vocalist will try to gear towards the what's going on there rather than focusing on what's going to make the best song. But if you're starting with the chords, starting with the vocal, like those are the most core elements of the song. Everything else should sort of build around that and fit to that, rather than going the other way around, for me at least. And then kind of drums and things come after that, and that kind of processes. Yeah, and even if like you don't know any songwriters or anything, starting with vocals from Splice, starting with a sample, anything like that really works for me. And even if you're just doing, if your only option is to send instrumental for a singer, you can start with an acapella that you like, even if it's a commercially released song, build around that, and then you'll have at least that inspiration just to get going, and then you take the vocal off, set it to another vocalist, get a brand new vocal.
So you mentioned you got the vocal from Perfect Havoc. How did that happen? Like, was that off the back of the other releases, or did it is it off? It
didn't come from Perfect Havoc directly. It came from Tilliard, which publishing company in the UK. And I had done Faking with them as well, so that was one of the writers on that was signed there, and I just kept a relationship with them and would get top lines from them from time to time of things to try. And
are they publishing you?
No, they're not publishing me, but I just knew some people there and would just get top lines from time to time.
That's very cool, because I know lots of people struggle for top lines. That's very cool, and kind of working with the publisher. That's
exactly. That's a great tip. Like, it's great to make connections with vocalists directly, of course, but if you make a connection with a publisher, they have a whole roster of vocalists that they can send you a whole bunch of top lines, and you can just sort of have your pick, you know. And
there you go.
And a lot of people say like, oh, like, why would they send this thing to me? But like, you sort of have to work your way up the food chain, you know, like everything they're going to send to you could have been passed on by a bigger artist and then passed on the artist below that. And then eventually it's like, okay, well, someone at your size will work, you know? And my first big release, Faking, before I had a million streams, was sent through there. So you'd be surprised of how willing they are to work with stuff that if they've been sitting on something for 2 or 3 years, they're and you want to try something with it, they're going to be happy to send it out and see what happens, you know? And if you make something and then a big label like Spinnin wants to sign it, they're good to go, you know?
That's really cool. Like, because I assumed like it would have come off the back of the 3 million streams. But if that happened before, if that can happen for smaller artists and people that are in the chat and people that are kind of watching this back,
that did help with getting more top lines. Like, they sort of give you a shot and see if it does well. And if it does well, they'll see there's potential with your project and they'll send you more and more. Yeah,
because like you saying before, you have stepped up the food chain because of the success of the tracks. But That's great to know that you can do it at a lower level and you can just kind of get in contact and kind of say, look, I'm looking for vocals, I'm looking for top lines. There's definitely a few people in our chat that always have making great piano tracks and great kind of great music, but they definitely struggle for vocals. So that's great to know for them.
Even if you go on like SoundCloud, like there are even pages on SoundCloud that just have top lines that they're available publicly and you can request them as well. Like I think Unified Songs is one of them on SoundCloud.
Okay, so let's play this and then we'll carry on. Let's do this.
Ain't afraid to cross enemy lines and finish what you started. If I'm collateral, take you down when I fall. 'Cause this hard line is never running out of lives. Never running out of lives. Never running out of lives.
There we go. That's great. You can see some of that kind of grittiness from the from the Hell Deep release a little bit, but also kind of change some of the pulling in some of the sounds from earlier, where it's a bit more song based, a bit more kind of that happier vibe, and it kind of, I guess that kind of united a little bit of fan base at the same time as well.
100%. Yeah.
So that kind of release came at the end of 2021, and then you had a bit of a break releasing last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was that kind of? Was that kind of making, or was you touring? What happened last year?
I was touring, but I was happy with the way things were going release wise. But I was like, okay, I still need to refine the sound a bit, and I realized I had done a bunch of releases. So I realized what was working, what wasn't working as well. And I love records like that, like full on pop records. But I think this is actually something you talked about in the course, where I was like, there's certain records that you want to release more when you have more of a fan base, and there are other records that will sort of get your head the game. Like, that's a great record, but other DJs aren't really going to play that record, because it's a more radio commercial record. And the best way to grow at an earlier stage is to get other DJs playing your records. And so I wanted to shift my focus more towards club music, because I think people are looking in this day and age are looking for more of an edge when they're looking for new artists. And very few obviously there's some exceptions like Kygo, Sam Felt, names like that of people who've broken from pop records on the electronic side. But the main thing I think is club records. Even if you look at like people you think of now as pop, like DJ Snake, his first big record was Turned Down for What? And then he took that same sound and made it commercial. So I'm not saying don't make those records, but I think you want to break through with more clubbier records and something with a bit more of an edge to get people excited about a newer sound, So I wanted to refocus the sound towards that. And at the same time, I was still able to tour. So I was happy doing that, but I didn't want to just force out releases I wasn't happy with yet,
That's cool. That makes sense. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. And then, like I said, you joined us in July of last year. Can we just talk about kind of what you took, the biggest takeaways you took from kind of doing the course, and what you're using and what's working for you?
Oh, 100%. I'd say the biggest takeaways is, like I said earlier, building a schedule, having more organization behind the content part. Like, it's become where social media is such an important part of what we do, is that we spend all this time organizing our releases, organizing our project files, organizing our record box. So why not organize that part too and have it all laid out, and it'll just make it easy for you in the end. So instead of like I said, I haven't posted in a few days, I need to figure out what to post, and rushing through a camera roll to find something. I'm sure we've all been there at some point. And then instead just make a plan and attack it from that way. And I just wanted to find a way to leverage the content and stuff I was doing better into a more coherent social media strategy. And I think that's been working. I think the big things have been Reels for me, just because like they have the potential, like the algorithms change a bit where they can reach much more people. Like when I do a recap from tour, those ones do the best for me. They show a bit of the show content, they show a bit of the lifestyle too. It's not just like a 15-second clip. These are actually 1 minute long clips, like cut together recaps. And then I've had them do 50,000, 100,000, 80,000 on Reels, which has been amazing.
Amazing.
And then more recently, I've shifted more towards TikTok as well, just because I feel like I could grow there. I have a good amount of followers on Instagram, but I wanted to get my TikTok number up. And just recently, last week, I had my first, I wouldn't say viral, but somewhat viral video with 100,000 views on TikTok. I know the course doesn't talk as much about TikTok as Instagram, but a lot of the things same apply. Like I post the same content, a lot of the same content on Reels as I do on TikTok.
Yeah, I feel like everything we talk about in Reels, it's short content, and I feel like it works across whether it's TikTok or whether it's YouTube Shorts now as well. And I feel like there's slight little tweaks per platform, but it is only slight little tweaks per platform.
100%. Yeah, I'd say the main bread and butter of the content that we do can work on both. But TikTok, I'd say, is a bit more trend focused. And if you can see a trend that's happening and to sort of apply that to what you do, that's how I got my most recent success on TikTok. I didn't post on Reels because it's more of a trend thing. It was sort of the trend was like reasons why you should do something, and it's something you actually shouldn't do, and you don't put any reasons. And I put this might be a little controversial for the audience, but I put personally reasons why you should bring your controller and laptop to the club instead of learning how to use CDJs. And I didn't put any reasons. Which is, I'm all for controllers. I love controllers. I started on a controller as well. But I feel like if you have the opportunity to use industry standard equipment, then use them. If they don't have them, bring your own gear. That's all good. But learning to use more gear can only increase the opportunities. Because if you don't know how to use CDJs and then you're at an after party and someone wants to go back to back with you, what are you going to do? You know.
Pie's got a game. He says he's moved away from TikTok. So many creators are leaving because they don't pay people what they're worth. Yeah, I feel like that's going to happen this year as well. Pie's got. I think. Like people will move to YouTube because their payout is much stronger on shorts than it is on now. They're monetizing shorts. I feel like that's essentially going to happen a lot this year with TikTok. People are going to shorts. Again, it's a new platform, so there'll be loads of reach there.
Yeah, I'm starting with that as well. On
Good.
YouTube is a bit. Fortunately, I got picked to be in the YouTube partner program for growing up and coming artists. So I've been investing heavily into that. Yeah.
Amazing. That's great to hear.
Yeah. Because so far I've only really posted I've done a few shorts and then I post my recaps there.
How are they doing?
The shorts are okay. I need to put more time into it now that the algorithm's a bit more boosted there. But the recaps have done pretty well. Main thing is honestly the things that do best at my YouTube is just uploading the visualizer for my songs. Because so many people don't realize how many people. Honestly, YouTube is probably the biggest source of music. More than Spotify, more than Apple, anything else. More people just go to listen to music on YouTube, casual fans,
100%. I've been saying this. I said this last night in a webinar last night. 100%. For me, it's always like when you rock up to an after party and there isn't decks there, and it's just one that someone's around at their house, and it's always YouTube being used. Whether it's to listen to mixes, whether it's to just, like you say, search for songs, and you're kind of just dropping your songs off from YouTube. It's always been YouTube. Cool. Okay, so. We're now hitting 2023. Let's talk about music for this year. What have you've actually got a little clip of something something new?
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
What have you got anything more locked down? Have you got releases locked down for this year? How's it looking for this year so far?
Yeah, I have a couple of releases locked down for this year, remix as well. And then, I'm just shifted the sound. I wanted to find a way to take the melodic stuff I love and make it a bit more still clubby, but still have that kind of euphoric feeling that I felt that made me fall in love with dance music as well. And I think this track really reflects that as well. So it should be a big year for releases. I may or may not working out a pretty big collab for this year as well, which I can't say anything about yet. But
amazing. Right, let's play this. I'll play a little clip of it. I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'm just going to play a little clip. Let's go into. Let's see if I can. Is this going to work? Yes, it does.
And I keep running in the dark to find a way out. I don't need you. Praying to the moon. Just take me home. Just take me home. Just take me someplace in the night where I can finally disappear. Praying to the moon. Just take me home. Just take me home. Just take me.
That's again change the sound. More proggy, like you say, more melodic. That's mad, man. That's sounded really big and polished, and much different from the sounds we've been playing before. Was the process the same when you're making these tracks? Does it kind of again start with the vocals, start kind of building out from that? Is that the similar vibe?
Exactly. I start with the vocal for this one as well. Build out from that vocal, then the chords, and then everything else just add on, and then the little ear candy sound, synth work. That's honestly what makes the track for me. It started out with just the chords. I knew there was something there, but those little extras that you can add, the devil's always in the details for me.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. And you've had some great success on Spotify. Have you got any kind of tips for Spotify? Like have things that have worked for you or things that are working for you constantly? Like, what are you doing there? Or is it kind of in the hands of just big releases?
So I think the releases are the main thing. If you're working with bigger labels, they'll help you get in that more editorial. It's all I'd say third-party playlists should not be overlooked. If your label has a relationship with them, for example, Perfect Havoc was just distributed by Warner ADA, was able to get in some of those Warner major label playlists, and that was probably a big factor in the streaming numbers there.
But they also have they have a massive 100,000 follower, some massive playlists as well that are just their third-party ones as well, and they definitely work with those. Yeah,
third-party playlists can't be overlooked. And then another thing with that release was it actually got into the FIFA 22 soundtrack nice. End of 2021. So that really helped with streams a lot. And if you go on the YouTube of that track, all the comments are like, oh, I know this song from FIFA, the best song in FIFA. Any little things you can do like that can only help, you know.
That's very cool. I wonder how that's a publishing thing as well. That would definitely be. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, and then we spoke about 2023. 23 sounded good for you. Like that record sounded great. I noticed that you've had some great support as well this or just before Christmas. I saw some videos where you had records that are being played by Gordo. Congrats. That record sounded great as well. Is that coming out? What's happening with that? Like that we're
working at the release of that one right now. Can't say too much about it, but I think that's gonna be a big record this year.
Amazing. I'm so happy for you. Wicked. Meza says, do you think having radio edit versions of your tracks on streaming platforms helps with engagement opposed to DJ format tracks that might only have 5 minutes of might have up to 5 minutes of runtime?
If you go to the big editorial playlists, like you're not going to hear a minute long intro. You know, you're going to want a radio edit. I love extended mixes. A lot of people put both up, and I think that's cool too. But if you're going to pitch one, pitch the radio edit. Yeah,
agreed. Because also, like with the radio edit, you get with Spotify, you get a thing called a skip rate, and the more higher that skip rate, that actually pushes the track down. So
exactly,
spending that. Do you when you make with your radio edits, do you make your radio edits, and do you kind of make them so you know that it is a radio edit, or do you allow the label to do that?
I think it myself. A lot of times they'll give you guidelines of what they want, like time wise and arrangement wise, but I always do it honestly, like most of my tracks, unless it's like a pure club track, putting the intro outro is like the last thing I'll do, you know, especially with the more radio ones. I never start with I see a lot of producers like start just making the intro, and I'm like, to me, that's the fastest way to lose inspiration. I start with a drop and then build backwards and forwards from there. So yeah, the only times I really make an intro if it's in something like I want to play out right away. If I want to play it out right away, I'll make the intro and then play it out. But yeah, I usually start with the radio edit and then the intro outro come after. So that makes sense. Easy.
Yeah, because so many people just don't deliver radio edits, and I think, like you're saying, they are killer. They are key for streaming, and people like we were mentioning, and I mentioned before. There's people listen. This is where people listen to music. So make the record fit the platform and the listener's habits. But 100%. Then also have ones for your other listener habits, which is your DJ sets and your extended mixes. So it is about making both versions. Have we got any questions in the chat? We've got a few minutes left, and then finally, can we just kind of sum up working with me and working with the course, and have you enjoyed it, and would you recommend it to others?
Oh, 100%. If you're looking to up your social media game, and just even if like you're happy, like I obviously came in with higher numbers than a lot of people. Not to brag or anything, just where I was, but like even if you're happy with the way your numbers work, there's always more you can be doing. There's always more strategy to come around it. And as you've mentioned many times, I think there's no better time than now. Like Instagram is actually pushing smaller pages more than the bigger ones these days. I think there's a bit of an opportunity right now. I've seen one friend of mine go from 10,000 followers to over 100,000 in the past 2 months,
Amazing.
Just from a few viral reels. There's always things you can be doing, and there's at any level. So don't feel like you're too ahead of the game. Like, oh, I got it. I have releases. I'm good to go. Like, there's always something you can learn.
Great. It's great to hear. Have anyone got any questions? Are there any questions from the stream? I don't see anything in the chat. Did we get everyone's as we're going through? Like, did we?
I saw someone ask what DAW I use, and I use Ableton Live.
Yeah, go. Yeah. You're Ableton Live.
Yeah.
Any synths or plugins? Yeah, there's the question we've been missing. Thanks, Skeleton Keys. That should be actually part of my stable questions. Yeah. What are your big plugins and for you?
Diva has been my big one lately.
Nice.
Really good for the analog sound. The only thing I recommend is if you're using Ableton, take the pitch MIDI effect, put it on the channel before, because a lot of the different presets can be like vary in pitch, and instead of having to open up the MIDI and shift up and down an octave, you can just do it right there, and makes your life much easier, and then get to the sound you want. Because at first I got Diva a while ago, and I was like, oh, this sounds a little crazy. Like nothing's really sounding good, but using that changed the game for me. And then also just like when you get a new synth, the first thing you want to do is I'd go out and get a bunch of different preset packs. So you're not just stuck with the factory ones, because there's some good stuff in there always, but it sort of limits what you can do with that synth. Yeah.
Are you all in the box, or do you have any hardware? How's that work for you?
I have a Virus T I use occasionally, but lately it's just as I started touring more, I've stuck more in a box just because I have more access and allows me to. I don't have to wait to get home to work on stuff. So I'd say mainly in the box. Yeah,
makes sense. I know. What's the touring schedule like coming up? Are you out again? Are you playing Miami Ultra this year? What's happening there?
No announcements on that yet so far. Stay tuned.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a little slow right now. I'm just focusing on the studio stuff for the first part of the year, first quarter.
Cool.
It's getting releases sort of the rest of the year. So then
Amazing.
that way I'll have, I think I have a New York show in February is the next one. And then from there on, it's just getting the music out, and that's going to lead to more touring through the spring and summer.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, mate. It's great to chat to you. This has been so much fun, and it's like so much like I'm still like bemused that you were like touring at 17 with like that's been my biggest like whoa, like holy crap. I can just imagine that. I'm trying to like at first it's like that whole conversation with the parents, guys, I'm going on tour and I'm DJing around the world. Imagine so thank you so much for sharing that with me. Thank you for being here, and I hope you have a really great year and see you on the group calls at some point, hopefully.
That'd be great,
but yeah, keep in touch and keep where I am, and
for sure.
Let's smash 2023 for you.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
I'm excited.
Yeah, thank you for all the help with everything.
Oh, totally, man.
All the advice. I know I text you sometimes or email you some advice or a label contact or whatever, and it's all super helpful.
Do it.
That's another great part of the course. Like, yeah, you're a legend in the industry, so having that insider step always puts you a step ahead. You know.
Thank you. I'm glad it's helping. I'm glad it really is. And drop me a message if you need me. That's cool. If you found this interview interesting, consider giving it a like and a comment. It helps with the YouTube algorithm, and let me know your biggest takeaway below. Don't forget to follow me on Twitch. I'm back on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and you can check out the schedule from the link below as well to see who's coming up in my interview series. I'll see you in the next Twitch stream or the next YouTube video. I'll see you soon. Bye.